Okay.
Hi, my name is Jessica Mugnelli.
And my name is Cheyenne Malik, and you're listening to Problematic,
Problematic TV shows.
a podcast where we discuss.
Problematic TV shows. Today, we're going to talk about the tokenism of minorities and U.S. primetime television during the 1990s and early 2000s.
Tokenism is the performative inclusion of minority groups in places like the television and film industries, workplace, and sometimes college campuses. They are chosen solely due to their ethnicity or race to bring out the illusion of diversity. First, we will be looking into the major events in U.S. history during these decades. Then we'll dive into the minority representation in four of the biggest shows during this time period.
Today, we'll be analyzing the shows Friends, which aired in 1994, That 70s Show, which aired in 1998, Malcolm in the Middle, which aired in 2000, and The Big Bang Theory, which aired in 2007.
But first, let's take a look at some of the key events that occurred during this time period. In the 1990s, George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton were president. The North American Foreign Trade Agreement took place, which expanded American production, and the dot-com boom began. These brought about changes to the way that people bought and perceived products as the U.S. economy began to globalize. Therefore, people invested more in television and film industries.
In the next decade, George W. Bush and Barack Obama were president. 9/11 terrorist attack occurred in New York City. Troops were sent to Iraq and Afghanistan. The iPhone transformed technology, and the Great Recession of 2008 occurred. The collective economic struggles throughout America brought about an increase in viewership of television. Now that we've described what life was like during this time period, let's delve further into our selected shows.
Before we begin, we wanted to note that our rationale for choosing these specific shows is that we grew up watching them, and we wanted to see how watching these shows affected the thoughts and beliefs of our generation, as the late 90s and 2000s shows were what we mostly saw on TV. Also, we chose all network shows as they gained a broader viewership and were able to uphold it for years, as each show had over 7 seasons, whereas cable TV was exclusive to only those who could pay for it.
The first show we'll look at today is Friends. The show is about 6 friends in their 20s living in Manhattan during the 90s. They experience life's ups and downs together, as well as develop their own friendships and relationships. At the beginning of the show, Rachel moves in with her old high school friend, Monica, who decides to teach naive Rachel how to navigate adulthood. Across the hall from their apartment lives Chandler and Joey. The final 2 pieces of the close-knit group are Ross, Monica's older brother who's been in love with Rachel since high school, and Phoebe, a zany, free-spirited masseuse. Friends is the odd show out in our list of 4 because it doesn't have any people of color on the show for a long period of time. Only a handful of characters on the show are not white, all of them exclusively being side characters. In fact, it took the show 9 years for a Black woman with an actual name and arc to appear when Ross ends up dating his colleague Charlie. Before Charlie, Ross also dated an Asian woman named Julie. Though there was nothing innately wrong with either of these characters, they always ended up being the bad guys because they cannot compare with the white woman of Ross's dreams, Rachel. Cheyenne, how do you think seeing women of color constantly coming in second to a white woman and not being good enough for the main character affects viewers?
Yeah, Jessica, it's definitely damaging to see only white characters being illustrated as desirable characters in TV, and seeing people of color always being less than them. It makes a difference in the way people perceive their worth. As a woman of color myself, it's tough not seeing people like me in the spotlight or being appreciated on screen.
Yes, I definitely agree. I also think that it was disheartening to see that the only representation of women of color were just as Ross's love interests, and that they had no real roles in the show. It begs the question if actresses of color were even considered to be more than temporary objects for their white co stars.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. This is the exact example of tokenism, as minority characters are not given the full development and are only presented as a way to add diversity to the show.
Besides Ross's girlfriends, in season 1, Rachel has a brief fling with Paolo, a handsome Italian man. Ross is very jealous of Paolo and takes advantage of the fact that he speaks little English by calling him names to his face.
No, not where I was going. If you get in the way of us becoming a thing, then I would be, well, very sad.
Oh.
So do you, ceviche?
Si.
So you do know a little English.
Poquito.
Yeah. Do you know the word crap weasel? No? That's funny, 'cause you are a huge crap weasel.
It is also made clear that Rachel only likes Paolo because of the overly sexual nature of their relationship and not because of who he is as a person. Their relationship ends because Paolo sleazily makes a pass at Phoebe while getting a massage.
What happened? Well, he came in for a massage, and everything was fine until...
Oh, my God.
Are you sure? Oh, yeah, I'm sure. And all of a sudden, his hands weren't the problem anymore.
After watching those clips, what conclusions do you believe viewers might make about Latin men?
I believe that some of the conclusions people could make based off of this particular character are that Latin men are promiscuous and that their motivations are purely sexual.
It's interesting that you say that because Dana E. Mastro, a professor of communications at UC Santa Barbara, believes that the Latin lover trope is one of the most common tropes that Latin men have been confined to. This stereotype produces one-dimensional characters that are well-groomed, sexually aggressive men with heavy accents. According to Mastro, Latin men are portrayed as addictively romantic, sensual, sexual, and even exotically dangerous.
Yeah, this definitely ties back to the idea of tokenism, as the sole purpose of adding Paolo's character to the storyline was to cause conflict. He's never considered as a person, but only as Ross's problem.
The next show we'll discuss is That 70s Show, a late 90s sitcom set in the 70s that follows the coming of age of a group of 6 teenage friends living in the suburbs of Wisconsin. It focuses on Eric Foreman, an average high school student who has a doting mother named Kitty and a strict father named Red. The rest of the group includes Eric's girlfriend Donna, Kelso, a lovable but stupid ladies' man, Kelso's on and off again spoiled girlfriend Jackie, Hyde, a lone wolf conspiracy theorist, and Fez, a foreign exchange student eager to learn more about American culture. Today, we're going to be focusing in on Fez's character. For the entirety of the show, Fez is positioned as the outsider, as the only non-white person on screen. From the start, his friends decide his real name is unpronounceable, so they call him Fez, which is short for a foreign exchange student. Eric's father, Red, usually just calls Fez the foreign kid, or by a random foreign-sounding name. Interestingly, the show never bothers to say where he is from, but his whole persona is based around his exoticness. Fez is always the odd one out that doesn't really fit into the group, but is always blissfully ignorant to this fact, which furthers the idea that he is unable to understand social norms. The following clips are just a few instances where Fez's otherness becomes the punchline.
Where do you live?
America.
It's pronounced America.
That's what I said. America.
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 Cheyenne, what stands out the most to you in this clip?
So, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is Fez's exaggerated accent. I'm not sure if this was intentionally overdone or if that's really how the actor sounds. And I can also see how Fez's character development is depicted as less intelligent than the rest, as the others try to correct his pronunciation for words.
What you've pointed out, Cheyenne, is what Mastro calls the buffoon stereotype. In addition to the Latin lover trope, Mastro also describes the buffoon as another stereotype Latin men are subjected to. Mastro says the buffoon is a Latin man who has a heavy accent, is of secondary status, and is lacking in intelligence. As that clip demonstrated, Fez checks all of these boxes. While Fez is one of the 6 main friends, he still comes across as a background character, a secondary character in comparison to his white counterparts. Notably, Fez speaks in a high-pitched, effeminate accent and is not allowed the same masculinity that his white friends are. He is constantly portrayed as desexualized in comparison to his friends, yet hypersexualized around women. Here are a few examples of Fez being hypersexualized.
What's funny?
In my language, the record just said, I want to sex your monkey.
Oh, this bra is so uncomfortable. You know, I think I'm gonna stop wearing them altogether. See ya.
You watch her. You love her, man.
Oh, baby, I love you so much.
Were you doing Jackie?
Yes. Don't worry. If it will save your job, I will pretend to be your boyfriend. We should probably practice.
Oh, get off me.
I was trying to help.
You were trying to cop a feel.
You didn't let me finish. I was trying to help myself to a handful of your boob.
Why do you think that the show decides to portray Fez as both desexualized and hypersexualized, as opposed to just one?
As the token Latino character in an all-white cast, Fez's character is deemed as subordinate to his white friends, yet illustrated as overtly sexual towards women due to the racial stereotypes about Latin men. His character bears the baggage of the stereotype of being a hypersexual Latino, as well as being less intelligent than white co-stars. The show plays on both stereotypes in order to make the character seem even more of a caricature. So, the next show that we will be discussing is Malcolm in the Middle. Malcolm in the Middle was one of my favorite shows growing up, and still is. The show follows a highly dysfunctional, lower middle class white family. The parents both work, and the children, 4 boys, are troublemakers. Each episode highlights a new challenge for the family. The main character of the series, Malcolm, is very academically inclined. He's put into an accelerated class for gifted students, the Krellboyne class. His character is also able to speak directly to the audience at various points throughout the show. What separates Malcolm from the rest of his family is the fact that his biggest foible or character flaw is his arrogance, and this is the reason why he needs to rely on others to build his character, like his best friend Stevie. Stevie's character development and purpose in the show as the Black best friend is what I will be discussing. In a podcast by NPR titled How TV Shows Use BBFs to Appear Racially Diverse, Steve Inskeep and Eric Diggins describe the role of Black characters in many early 2000s TV shows and movies. They discuss the term Black best friend to describe most roles for African American actors on television where they have little purpose beyond supporting the show's white star. Diggins also goes on to say that Black best friends are often a diversity head fake, a quick way to make the cast of the TV show look racially diverse, without taking time to create real characters of color with storylines of their own. So Stevie is Malcolm's best friend in the show. He's also in the Krellboyne class with Malcolm, and as mentioned, Stevie's character is only purposeful to Malcolm to aid his character development. As mentioned, Stevie's character is only purposeful to aid Malcolm's character development. Through Stevie's reactions to Malcolm's behavior, we're able to observe the levels of arrogance that Malcolm overcomes throughout the duration of the series. Let's take a look at a scene where this is apparent.
Hey, Stevie. You were supposed to meet me at the library. Oh, yeah. Sorry. You know, I actually found something decent on Ed's computer. The Verts? Yeah. You create a virtual family, put them in different situations, and the computer plays out their lives. I'm putting in the characters right now.
Is that your mom?
Not yet. Reese.
Make sure you capture the blackness of his soul.
Aggressiveness, 10. Hygiene, 0. Okay, now me. No. Appearance, 9. No, 10. A 10 for intelligence. And social skills, 10.
Too bad it doesn't go higher.
I have social skills, jackass. It's asinine.
I thought you liked it.
No, this is idiotic programming. My family has turned out horrible. My mom finished law school and became a Supreme Court justice. Reese is the king of China, and my dad is a millionaire from his chain of auto body shops.
Why is Malcolm sneaking scotch from the toilet tank?
He won't stop drinking. That's his second bottle since breakfast. I am so done with this game. No, you know what? I'll move them all to Arkansas to become chicken farmers. That ought to level out the playing field. Nothing I do has any effect whatsoever. If I give them money, if I take it away, if I make them ugly, if I make them Canadian, everything works out beautifully for them and horrible for me.
Dewey just became Pope.
And I weigh 500 pounds.
So Jessica, how do you think this show and others like it use the token Black best friend character to promote diversity?
From this clip, it seems that Stevie's only purpose is to be spoken to by Malcolm. He voices the audience's thoughts through his reactions to Malcolm's antics. It seems like there are multiple time breaks within this one scene, and not once does Malcolm ask Stevie about what's going on in his own life. As the Black best friend, Stevie makes the cast seem more diverse, but his character is ultimately just a board that Malcolm can share his thoughts to.
Not only is Stevie's character played one-dimensionally, but he is also always second to Malcolm. According to Mastro, Black characters are more likely to be employed in positions with lower levels of occupational prestige than their white counterparts. In Malcolm in the Middle, Stevie is always shown to be less intelligent and less clever than Malcolm. In this next scene, the teacher of the Krellboyne class creates a ranking system to force the students to strive to excel at greater lengths.
What's this?
A study of irrigation techniques of pre-Roman society and how they led to the advancement of Western civilization.
I thought we were just studying Mesopotamian farming techniques.
We were.
I just used it as a jumping off point. I saw how their influences spread through the Egyptians, the Carthaginians, basically through the whole ancient world. I think you'd be very happy with this paper.
Very nice. Number 12. It's nice to see a little effort put forth, while some are content to do the absolute minimum.
So, he wants to play. Oh, we'll play all right. What is it we're playing?
Okay, I think we're ready to show Principal Little Dove what the right kind of motivation can accomplish. Well done, class.
How do you think the viewers see Stevie and Malcolm's relationship as a result of their competitive nature?
Well, in this clip, Stevie is literally second to Malcolm on the blackboard, which symbolizes how his character will always be inferior to Malcolm's.
And the Black best friend character trope is the simplest form of tokenism, as their character is used only to support their white friend instead of attaining a larger development and arc. The final show that we will be discussing is The Big Bang Theory. This series is focused on two roommates and friends, Sheldon and Leonard. They are both extremely intelligent physicists who work at the California Institute of Technology, but are also shown to have very different personalities. The two roommates are friends with their Caltech colleagues, mechanical engineer Howard Wolowitz and astrophysicist Rajesh Kutrapali. The four spend their time working on their individual projects, playing video games, watching science fiction movies, or reading comic books. Penny, a woman who moves into the apartment across from Leonard and Sheldon, also joins the group later in this series as Leonard's love interest. I wanted to highlight Raj's character in The Big Bang Theory and how the writers incorporated various stereotypes. The show writers of The Big Bang Theory decisively chose to exaggerate some of the stereotypes placed on Indian men in America. For example, Raj's exotic accent, his inability to talk to girls, his parents always forcing his decisions, and his worship practices are all sources for jokes throughout the series. Although this is clearly a comedy show, the fact that the writers deliberately chose to make jokes solely on Raj's race is questionable. The lazy writing on the show is apparent in scenes that poke fun on stereotypes of Indian culture. In a show with a predominantly white cast, Raj's character stands out as the token brown person. Overall, his character does not add much to the friendship, yet is used mostly as a punching bag for his racial background. The impact of this type of representation is broad, as it creates stereotypes and expands on the model minority idea that Indian men are intelligent yet socially awkward. Let's take a look at some clips where Raj's identity as an Indian man is played as comedy.
Who do we have here? It's a snake. It's a terrifying snake.
Oh, did some bad man put us in a drawer?
Stop talking like that. You've been rendered speechless by fear.
Let's go to the biology lab and find you some nice, yummy mice.
I tried to scare an Indian with a snake.
Since the show is meant to be a comedy, many argue that jokes on Raj's accent and ethnicity are okay. What are your thoughts, Jessica?
Honestly, I just think the jokes about Raj could have been written much better. The fact that the only thing being laughed at about him is who he is as an Indian man is just sad. It's not that it's inherently bad to laugh at a character in a comedy, but because all the jokes about Raj are solely about race, while all the other characters have jokes about multi-layered things, just shows how the shallow representation of Indians is intentional in the show.
Definitely. Mastro also found that in dramas, minorities are featured in mixed race casts, but in sitcoms, they are included in predominantly white casts, resulting in a greater amount of race-based content. This, I think, is the reason why we see most comedies and sitcoms using ethnicity or race as the source for jokes about minority characters. Also, as the token brown person in an all-white cast, Raj's character is not allowed the same character depth as the others by writer's design.
Overall, it is clear that minorities in the 1990s to early 2000s time period were written specifically as a way to perpetuate stereotypes and to just support their white lead characters.
In Friends, the idea of women of color being second to white women was shown through Ross's love interests, and the Latin lover stereotype was furthered through Paulo's character.
Similarly, in That 70s Show, Fez's exaggerated foreignness and sexuality exemplifies another stereotype of Latin men being the buffoon.
Next, Stevie from Malcolm in the Middle personifies the black best friend character trope where his purpose in the show is solely to aid the white lead.
And finally, Raj's character from The Big Bang Theory demonstrates the lack of thought that went into writing jokes about minority characters.
These ideas and stereotypes have great impact on viewers. As stated by Mastro, the misrepresentation of minorities in television shows impacted the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of audience members, whites in particular.
Not only does the misrepresentation of minorities on TV, but the disproportionate representation of minorities on TV contribute to perpetuating stereotypes. In 2005, Latinos represented 12.5% of the US population, while typically making up only 1 to 4% of the primetime television population. In this same year, monoracial Asian Americans made up only 1.8% of broadcast series regulars, compared to the census estimate of 4.3% Asian American Pacific Islander population. Similarly, Black Americans constituted 14 to 17% of the primetime population, as they constituted only 12.9% of the population according to the census.
Looking at the disproportion of minorities in real life compared to television through the lens of cultivation theory, we can analyze how this affected the ways in which people perceived minority groups. Cultivation theory describes how the long-term exposure to TV's stable set of selected messages shifts viewers' social perceptions towards the TV version of reality, no matter its accuracy. White viewers might watch these shows and unconsciously start to believe that there is a lower population of minorities in America, and also that their representation holds truth.
Likewise, social identity theory explains why minorities are represented as less desirable compared to their white counterparts. This theory describes how people try to maintain a positive identity by comparing the favorable characteristics attributed to their groups with the unfavorable characteristics of relevant other groups in order to protect their self-esteem. Writers cater to white viewers by upholding the aforementioned stereotypes and by painting their white characters as role models.
Moreover, the idea of cultural citizenship, the extent to which a group belongs to a common understanding of what is American, gatekeeps who is and who is not considered to be an American. The stereotypes and otherness that minorities experience on these TV shows are all ultimately the result of white America's desire to define what it means to be an American. They see accurate representations of minorities as cultural threats to the fabric of US society.
On that powerful note, that is all the time we have today, folks. We hope you enjoyed our analysis of the tokenism of minorities in 1990s and early 2000s television.
Thank you for listening.